Before Spider-Man, there was Venom, a creature born from darkness with a hunger for chaos. But who is Venom, and how did this terrifying anti-hero come to be? Let's dive into the origin of one of Marvel's most iconic and complex characters. In the vast expanse of the universe, where countless worlds orbit countless stars, there exists a planet like no other, Klyntar, the home of the symbiotes. These creatures were born from the primal forces of the cosmos, their fluid forms capable of merging with other beings to enhance their abilities. The symbiotes were initially created to be noble warriors, spreading peace and order throughout the galaxy by bonding with virtuous hosts. But not all symbiotes were created equal. One among them, the creature that would eventually be known as Venom, was different. It harbored a deep, insatiable hunger, a hunger for power and chaos. Unlike its kin, who sought harmony, this symbiote craved domination, and its very essence was tainted by darkness. The Venom symbiote's first attempt to bond with a host took place far from Earth, on a distant planet ravaged by war. It found a host in a warrior whose heart was filled with rage and bloodlust, a perfect match, or so it seemed. For a time, the symbiote and its host were unstoppable, their combined strength laying waste to enemies and entire armies. But the symbiote's thirst for power soon grew beyond even its host's capacity. It began to take control, pushing the warrior beyond his limits, driving him to madness. The bond was eventually broken, and the symbiote was cast out, rejected for the first time. It was then that the symbiote realized that not all hosts were worthy. Only those who could fully embrace its darkness would suffice. Cast out from its first host, the symbiote wandered the universe, searching for a new being to bond with. Its journey took it across countless worlds, from desolate moons to vibrant planets teeming with life. Each time it bonded with a new host, the results were the same. The symbiote's insatiable hunger for control eventually consumed the host, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Over time, the symbiote grew more desperate and more isolated, as it struggled to find a being who could match its twisted desires without being utterly destroyed. Its travels eventually brought it to Earth, a small, unassuming planet on the outskirts of a remote galaxy. It was here, in the shadows of humanity, that the symbiote would find its most infamous host yet, Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock was once a man with a promising career in journalism, driven by a desire to uncover the truth and expose the corrupt. But his ambition became his undoing. When Eddie falsely accused a man of being a criminal based on fabricated evidence, his career was shattered. Disgraced, humiliated, and abandoned by those he loved, Eddie found himself at rock bottom. Consumed by anger and self-loathing, he wandered the dark alleys of New York City, searching for a way to reclaim his life or end it. It was in this state of despair that Eddie encountered the symbiote. Drawn to his inner turmoil, the symbiote saw in Eddie the perfect vessel for its power, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. When the symbiote bonded with Eddie Brock, the transformation was instantaneous and overwhelming. Eddie's body was enveloped in the symbiote's dark, viscous form, and he felt a surge of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. The symbiote amplified Eddie's strength, agility, and senses to superhuman levels, while also giving him the ability to shapeshift and produce web-like tendrils. But the bond went deeper than just physical abilities. The symbiote fed on Eddie's anger and resentment, amplifying his darkest impulses. Together, they became something more than just man and alien. They became Venom. As Venom, Eddie was no longer the weak, defeated man he once was. He was now a force to be reckoned with, driven by a desire for vengeance against those who had wronged him. With the power of the symbiote, Eddie Brock took on the name Venom, a symbol of the poison he intended to inject into the lives of those who had wronged him. As Venom, Eddie became a formidable force in the criminal underworld, taking down anyone who stood in his way. But as he unleashed his fury on the world, he began to realize that the symbiote had its own agenda. It wasn't just feeding off Eddie's anger, it was amplifying it, pushing him towards ever darker deeds. The more Eddie used the symbiote's power, the more it began to dominate his mind, blurring the line between Eddie and Venom. As the bond between them grew stronger, so too did the internal struggle within Eddie. Was he still in control, or was he merely a puppet of the symbiote's will? The struggle between Eddie and the symbiote became a daily battle, with each side vying for dominance. There were moments when Eddie could feel the symbiote slipping into control, making him do things he would later regret, brutal acts of violence, fueled by the symbiote's insatiable appetite for chaos. Yet, despite the growing darkness within him, Eddie still held onto a sliver of his humanity, fighting to keep the symbiote's malevolence at bay. It was this internal conflict that made Venom a unique force, neither wholly good nor entirely evil, but something in between. A being torn between two worlds, with the potential for both heroism and villainy. Venom's path eventually crossed with one of the most iconic heroes in the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man. The symbiote had once bonded with Peter Parker, but unlike Eddie, Peter had managed to reject the symbiote, casting it aside. This rejection left the symbiote with a deep-seated hatred for Spider-Man, a hatred that Eddie quickly adopted. When Eddie and the symbiote discovered that they shared a mutual enemy in Spider-Man, their bond grew even stronger. Venom's first encounter with Spider-Man was a brutal one, fueled by a desire for revenge. But despite Venom's power, Spider-Man's agility and quick thinking allowed him to narrowly escape the deadly encounter. This was only the beginning of a long and bitter rivalry, one that would push both Venom and Spider-Man to their limits. Over time, Eddie Brock began to see the world in shades of gray. While the symbiote's influence often pushed him towards violence, Eddie also started to use Venom's power to protect the innocent, though his methods were far from heroic. Venom became an anti-hero, a vigilante who operated outside the law, dispensing his own brand of justice to those he deemed deserving. He targeted criminals, corrupt officials, and anyone who preyed on the weak, but his actions were always driven by his own code, not by any moral obligation. This transformation marked a new chapter in Eddie's life, as he began to reconcile his desire for vengeance with a growing need to make a difference in a world that had cast him aside. Though Venom's journey has taken many turns, from villain to anti-hero, the struggle within Eddie Brock is far from over. The symbiote remains a constant presence in his life, always whispering in his ear, always pushing him towards the edge. Their relationship is one of mutual dependence, a bond that is both empowering and destructive. Eddie knows that as long as he and the symbiote are bonded, he will never truly be free. Yet, despite the darkness that looms over him, Eddie also realizes that Venom has given him a purpose, a reason to fight, a reason to survive. Together, they walk a path that is neither light nor dark, but somewhere in between, a path that they must navigate together, for better or worse. Venom's story is one of power, conflict, and the eternal struggle between man and monster. But this is just the beginning. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the origins of your favorite superheroes, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content just like this.